the next session now is all about eye drops. And I decided that, well, the conference panel decided that it would be a good idea to share our thoughts and give eye drops a little bit more consideration, given that from my perspective, I think that eye drops are the cause of a lot of problems for many children, given it's something that we do from the very beginning. So I'm just going to start with the presentation just to introduce eye drops and eye drops from my perspective. Then we're going to hear from Belinda Faure, who is going to give a parent's perspective, and then we'll hear from Olivia again to look at what can we do to try and mitigate some of the issues. So if I had $1 for every time I've been asked this question about do I have to have drops today, I would be, COVID permitting, sunning myself in the Bahamas permanently. When a child tells me they don't like the eye drops, I say I don't like putting them in either. So that makes us even. Acknowledging that this process is not fun for anyone. In this presentation, I'm going to set the scene and spend some time thinking about eye drops, since there will not be one person in the audience listening right now who will have a fond memory of eye drops, either as the person having the drops, the person supporting them, or someone like me, the person giving them. And I'd just like to say that the stories and images that I'm sharing, I do so with permission, and I'm very grateful that they gave me the permission. Dilating pupils is a necessary part of a thorough eye examination. The eye drops dilate the pupil, as you know, with the dark black center part of the eye that sits in the colored part of the eye, the iris. And it does a great job at adjusting how much light gets into the eye when we're outside in the sun or indoors in the dark. It adjusts just like a shutter in the camera. And when we shine light directly in the eye, in normal circumstances, it becomes really small, which is not a good thing if you want to be able to look inside the eye as we do with retinoblastoma. You can, if you imagine, it's a bit like looking through a keyhole into a room and the door is closed. You can't really get a very good view around the room. Whereas when we dilate the pupil, it's a bit like opening those doors wide, and we've got a big doorway, which is a bit like the image I have on the right, where we've got double doors open wide and we can see right outside and view a nice, bright and broad landscape. If they can figure out how to send a man to the moon or even Mars, why can they not make eye drops that don't sting? Kieran Donovan, if you're online today, I'm looking right at you, given you're studying pharmacology. Maybe you can add this to your list of things to do. Now, in 2019, I visited Aarhus, Denmark, to find out more about the RB survivorship program there. And there I am on the right with Pernilla, who we just heard from earlier. And as with most of my trips, I end up learning about things I didn't set out to learn about. But there you go. On this trip, I had the pleasure of interviewing a survivor about her experiences with RB, and I didn't expect what I would hear. Very early in our discussion, Christina talked about her memory of having eye drops put in her eyes and being held down with one adult on each limb of her body. As a clinician, I too am guilty of having forced eye drops in my patients because they were necessary. And I'd like to think that I've learned a lot from the child life therapists and the One RB World community to do things a little differently now. But Christina's words really stuck with me, a bit like being burnt into my eardrums, as it were. And I've since had a few conversations with Christina, and I'd like to share with you her comments. I know I can't speak for your patients, but from my perspective, I hold no grudge against the nurses and doctors who helped treating me. I now know and understand that they did what they did to help me. They didn't mean any harm, but at the time, I didn't understand that. All I knew was that it was painful and uncomfortable, and I didn't understand why it was necessary. Though the bad experiences will stay with me, I'm also grateful for their work and dedication. If they hadn't done what they did, I might not have survived, or I might have been blind. Because of their actions, I only have a slight impairment of sight on my left eye and normal sight on my right. What's important for me is that there's a continuous learning improvement and development in the devices, techniques, and medication used to examine and treat children, so their experience will be as comfortable and safe as possible. It's not practical to anaesthetize a child in the early years when they can't understand before putting in the drops, as they can take 20 to 30 minutes at a minimum to work properly, and that just increases their exposure to anaesthesia. Some children at our centre will have their eye drops once their pre-med might have kicked in, but they still fight it. I just hope that they don't remember the fight. So that brings us to trying to do better. At my hospital, we developed a video for children that followed a little boy called Tyler through an eye clinic appointment. We use peer modelling, where a child can watch their peer experience what will happen to them so they can actually be prepared. The link to this video is shown here, and we can pop it into the chat if you want to have a look at it. But this video's had 500,000 views on YouTube so far, so I'd like to think that maybe it's made a difference to someone somewhere in the world. We don't actually have time to watch the video today, so I'm going to take you through it briefly. We start off with Tyler arriving at our beautiful, bright new hospital, hand in hand with his mum, and he's got his yellow soft toy Pikachu for comfort. This next image shows me testing Tyler. I'm holding my Nemo fish toy in my right hand, and my left arm is outstretched, covering his right eye, and he's sitting in the chair, and there's a nice blue background wall, and then on the desk you can see my bag full of toys bursting onto the desk. Now we've got Tyler on the right with a white eye patch over his left eye, and he's looking at the vision test letters VHOTH on the left of the screen. Now I'm showing Tyler on the left image. I'm showing Tyler what it feels like to have the little probe that we use to check eye pressure, and I'm actually touching his hand with it so that he gets the idea that whilst he will feel it, it won't feel painful. And he's looking at me very carefully, and he's watching what I'm doing, and I'm not quite sure that he believes me. And then in the right image, I've got our autorefractor, which is like a little handheld box held up against his right eye. And that machine tells me how the curve, what the curve of the front of his eye is like, and it tells me whether giving him glasses may help with his vision. Then we've got on the left a picture of me trying to take photos of the back of his eye. Anyone that knows me knows I don't actually know how to do this, and I'm just pretending to make this machine work. But in this image, we've got his mum standing behind him with his head pressed gently up against the frame of the camera that's mounted on a table. And I'm standing on the other side of the camera, adjusting the position and taking the photos. In the image on the right side, I've got a close-up of Tyler's face right up against the camera, looking into the lens, so that the child watching the video can see that when they're in this position, even though it might be a bit scary, the camera's not actually touching them, and it does remain quite a distance from their eyes. And I do like to show kids the photos sometimes because they think it's really cool, and it gives them something to look forward to at the end of doing this test. Now we're up to the eye drops. And this is the exciting bit. For an adult, it's a simple instruction: tilt your head back, look up. I draw the lower lid down and pop the drop in the corner of the eye in the lower lid, because that's where it is felt the least. The cornea, the front clear window of the eye, is actually one of the most sensitive parts of the human body. And that's why we ask parents or anybody really to look away from where the drop is actually being instilled. But it's not so easy with a child. The way I approach it is I often start by putting a drop on their hand first so they can feel that it's wet, and I let them touch it with their finger. If they've brought a toy with them, I will put the drops in their toy's eyes so that they can be the comforter first and then become the comforted. I might say, well, they feel cold on your finger, but if it's warm in your eye, then I know I got them in and I won't need to put any more. I have learnt not to say sting or tricky or tickly rather, and I cringe if the parents say it won't hurt, because that's not quite the truth. And I do like to give children the truth. I don't like to lie. Morgan taught me to say warm, and I find that's been working a lot better than saying tickle. So in these images, you can see on the left, Tyler sitting in his mum's arms on her lap, and he's looking at me. You can see what's about to happen. He's cuddling his Pikachu toy, and he's looking a little bit worried. In the image on the right, though, I've got Tyler lying in his mum's arm, and I say cradling like he's a baby, because who doesn't want to be cradled like they're a baby? And I've got the bottle of drops in my right hand, and I'm about to put the drop in his left eye. This takes a lot of trust and cooperation on the part of the child. And this is the smile he gave after the drops were put in the day that we shot this video, and it all just seemed too easy. The rest of the video shows Tyler playing while he waits for the drops to work. And sometimes I wander out into the waiting room and I'll have a look at their eyes and I'll say, wow, what a great team we made, because the drops got in and we did a really good job together getting those pupils to dilate so we can look inside your eyes. And these images show one of our doctors, John McKenzie, putting the ophthalmoscope, which is a special head-mounted light with viewing mirrors, so that he can look inside Tyler's eye using a lens. Tyler even gets a turn to wear the head-mounted light, and that sort of removes the scariness of what's happening in all these machines. And then in the image on the bottom left is Tyler looking inside the well, again, with his head mounted on a frame, because John is looking at his eyes with a slit lamp, which is a special microscope to look at the front of the eye. And I was so full of hope this day, and I thought this transition to clinic exams was going to be great, because this was the first time that Tyler had actually gone from having an examination under anaesthetic to coming down to the outpatient clinic. But sadly, things have gone downhill since then. He has struggled more and more every time with his eye exams, but only with the eye drops. Everything else he is perfectly fine. He has taken up to 30 to 45 minutes just to get me to allow me to put the drops in his eyes. And it has been a very difficult time for all of us, for me, for Tyler, and for his mum. So now his parents have been practicing at home to put, we've tried a few different ways, in fact, to prepare him. We've got him watching the video that he's the star of. Mum has got Tyler to video himself on the iPad talking about going to the hospital, having the drops in, how he was scared, but he did it anyway, and it was okay. Describing his feelings that he was scared, but that doesn't seem to have done a whole lot. So now his parents have been practicing at home using artificial eye tears, just so he can get used to the process a little bit more in a safer environment at home, and also so he can get used to the feeling of them. This video was shot by his mum. He's sitting on the couch at home with his head back and his eyes are closed, perhaps a little more tightly than I would like, but it's a start. And his dad, Ray, is practicing with an imaginary bottle of drops in his hand at first, and Tyler's got his tissue in his hand ready to wipe his eyes. And then his dad repeats the process with artificial tears so that Tyler can become more comfortable with the sensation of the drops falling in the corner of his eyes. So we're just going to play this video so you can see what I mean. Why can't I get that to play? Here we go. So that's the practice run. And now artificial tears.
Are we going to leave it in? When it drops in, just leave it, and I'll do the next one. You can do 3 clicks, okay? Back.
He's looking very relaxed.
One, that's all right.
Leave it.
Relax,
Leave
relax
it.
your hands.
Relax. Relax your eyes.
Relax, relax. Blink, blink, blink.
Good boy.
Blink, blink, blink. Yay!
Did that hurt?
No. Good
No.
job. Hold up.
I just love that smile when they're done. He really is proud of himself, and so he should be.
One.
Like I said, the day we shot this video, it was all too easy, and we've gone backwards, not forwards in his coping. And he's not the only one. It's almost like nearly every child that I look after, that I have the privilege of looking after, suffers the same distress and issues related to having eye drops. So we do need to do more and manage each child individually and provide the coping mechanisms and skills from the very outset when we start this process of putting eye drops, which is where child life comes in. Introducing comfort positions when they're babies and taking them through the process of having eye drops, so as not to set them up for a lifetime of anxiety and distress related to procedures as simple as having drops put in their eyes. So let me now introduce you to Belinda Faure, mother of our superstar Tyler. Belinda is going to now describe the challenges of eye drops from a parent's perspective.
Most of you. So my name's Belinda, and I've been asked to share my personal experience on the application and administration of the eye drops and the effects emotionally and mentally, not only on the child, but parents and family alike. So my son, who you just saw on the video, Tyler, he is now 8 years old and was diagnosed with retinoblastoma at birth. And although he has been cancer-free for 6 years, he continues follow-up routine medical checks involving the administering of the eye drops. One would think that being treated at such an early age, Tyler would have become used to receiving drops and that the routine checkups will become formality for him. But unfortunately, this has not been our experience. We try to ensure Tyler is well prepared emotionally for these checkups. We make him fully aware that we're leading up to his next appointment. But unfortunately, Tyler doesn't want to acknowledge this and brushes away our efforts. The night before Tyler's appointment is always a restless one for myself. I lie awake wondering what will transpire the next day, hoping it will be a success with little tears, or will it be a drama-filled afternoon? On the day of the appointment, I always have that like sick, anxious feeling in my stomach that probably every parent does. The medical team are very supportive, and my usual chirpy son is full of beans on the day until the eye drops appear. And it's as if a switch has been turned on and his whole demeanour just changes. Unfortunately, Tyler's experience is not improving as the years go by, but anxiety has settled in and is becoming worse at the moment with every appointment. This in turn results in us as parents feeling overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness. My husband and I have had many experiences where our son has fought so hard not to have the drops that it's taken the both of us to hold him down. To see him screaming and crying all because of these drops is heartbreaking. His main issue is that the drops make his eyes blurry and he hates this feeling, so because of that, he panics. To see him get so agitated and upset makes us very nervous, which then turns into a traumatic experience for all of us. He says he's ready, and then when we go to administer the drops, he gets very worked up. It's frustrating for not only the person administering them, but for myself as well, being there and watching him. I know he can do it, and in a matter of seconds, it's over and done with, but it's really hard to get to that stage. It's such a weird feeling because once he has had the drops administered, his anxiety disappears and he's back to being his chirpy self again straight away. So as you saw just before, we're currently trying to desensitize him. by administering water drops into his eye so he can understand the feeling of the drops actually hitting his eye. We're doing this every couple of weeks, and he's now at the stage of being wanting to put them in his eyes and trying them in our eyes as well, just to get the feeling of him holding them and putting them in. We talk about the drops with him when he's doing this, though he knows they are different to the hospital ones. He's also created his own video diary. After he has the drops at the hospital, he comes home and records himself so he can rewatch and hopefully not get so worked up when he has another appointment. When he had EUAs, we were at the stage of giving him the pre-med to help with the drops, but we know that isn't a long-term solution. He's gone from having monthly appointments to 6 monthly appointments. However, nothing has gotten any easier at these appointments. He's still very agitated, anxious, and panicky, but we are hopeful that the desensitizing work that we've been doing with him will see an improvement at his next appointment. Fingers crossed. I will always be nervous no matter how prepared we are for the appointments, but having a friendly face like Sandra and a calming person administering the drops can be helpful and comforting for not only Tyler, but us as parents as well. And for that, we are grateful that the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne has one of the best teams in the world to care and support for our kids who have retinoblastoma. I just want to thank you for the opportunity in allowing me to tell my story, and that it gives you some insight from a parent's perspective. Thank you. And that's little Tyler there with all his gear on.
Thank you so much, Belinda, for sharing that story. It was hard for me to listen to it as well. And I think there's a message that's come up through the chat that it is difficult. But as Grace said in the earlier session, and Penilla before that, we need to have the difficult conversations, and we need to not be afraid to talk about what's hard, because only then can we move forward. I'd now like to introduce Olivia Larkens, who spoke before about how child life can work in mental health and improving children's mental health. And now Olivia's going to talk specifically about some of the strategies that she's implemented since coming on board at the Children's Hospital. In fact, it was only after my visit to the first One World meeting in 2012 that we actually were able to get child life on board on a regular basis to our examination under anaesthetic operating lists, and things have changed remarkably. So thanks, Olivia, for everything that you do. I look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thank you, Sandra. And I think I mentioned in my last session that I've been doing this for about 6 years, but if Tyler is, Belinda just said Tyler's 8, and I met him when he was first born, so it's obviously been a little bit longer than that then. All right, so some of the things, and I guess it's important for me to also say that the things that I'm talking about here are things that we've implemented for our children who are coming for examinations under anaesthetic. So we, obviously they still do need their eye drops and everything. Unfortunately, at the moment, we haven't got the capacity in child life to be able to follow the children down to the clinic while they're doing awake examinations and provide further support there. But we are quite embedded within the patient care when they're coming for anaesthetics and their examinations there. So I guess some of the things that we've implemented since child life has been involved around eye drops has been medical play, and I spoke about medical play in the last session as well. But medical play allows for familiarisation and mastery of things that are being done to the child. It gives the children the opportunity to have some of that control and do eye drops on, whether it's on the doll, like in the picture down below there. We see kids, it used to be a lot easier pre-COVID, and we used to be able to collect all the old eyedropper bottles that we actually use for the kids and fill them up with water, and we could hand them out to the children and they would be doing eye drops on dolls, and it was always very interesting to sit back and watch the kids giving the dolls eye drops. Some of them would very ferociously be squeezing all these drops into the doll's eye and all the and everything, which is obviously how they think it's being done to them as well. But it also means that we could use the eyedroppers. We could do things like activities and stuff as well to help familiarise the kids with the eye drops. I'm sure for the kids, it feels like we're probably getting a hose and squirting it in their eyes. But when they can actually play with the eyedroppers and things like that, they can see that it is just a little drop of liquid that is going into their eyes. So like we said, promotes familiarisation and mastery around the eye drops. Can be done with dolls, soft toys, all those sorts of things, or through apps. You can see a picture up the top there, which is from an app called Dr. Dino, where we can use the app and pretend to give eye drops to the dinosaur. We will quite often do that prior to the kids having their eye drops, so they get a chance to give the dinosaur eye drops on the app. And then we say to the child, okay, now it's your turn for eye drops. And once their set of eye drops is finished, we can say, okay, well, you can give more eye drops to the dinosaur now. And lots of kids respond really positively to that. And also through medical play, like I mentioned earlier, we can watch how the kids are reacting when they're using that medical play and putting eye drops in dolls and all those sorts of things. And we can try and reframe it when we need to. So this one I did not long ago with a little child, and we had the drops, and I was holding the doll and we're wriggling the doll around and all that sort of stuff. And the child was able to understand that, oh, actually, it's really hard when the doll's moving around and you can't get the drops in their eyes properly, and they need some help to be held still. Then they came to this understanding that if they were able to hold a little bit stiller when we were doing the drops, it would be easier for the people giving them. It would happen a lot more quickly and things as well. So we're able to reframe some of those things and give the kids a chance to actually explain in their own words how it feels for them, and acknowledge how it's feeling for them. Find out how from them if there's any strategies that they think that we could do to help make it easier as well. So it's a great chance for them to be able to reframe those experiences that they've had. We're also very lucky that we have got a room that we can set up for the children to have their eye drops in. So we have a space where all the families come in together. We can set up play activities, and it's absolutely lovely to see all the kids come in and be playing together and having a great time while they're in the hospital. So by having a designated space where we take the children to do their eye drops, that means that space that we've got set up for play remains a safe space. So the kids aren't sitting there playing, watching the nurses going, are they coming to give me eye drops any moment now? And we're interrupting their play and doing eye drops and stuff on the mat. So we are able to give the kids the opportunity. We can give them a little bit of warning, say, okay, it's nearly time for us to do your next set of drops. We'll finish off what we're playing with, and we'll move them into this designated room that we have set up to do the drops. Within this room, we will often have things, we'll try and keep it as a calming environment. We have the option of the kids being able to have the choices to whether they want to lie down on a bed to have their drops or sit in a parent lap. We've got chairs in there as well. And often we'll have a projector set up, and we're projecting images onto the ceiling to try and encourage the kids to look up a little bit and tilt their heads back and everything. And it also helps for us to redirect them once we've finished the drops as well. What we've also found is that if we're not then doing the drops in front of all the other children, and we're minimising that chain reaction, I guess, of one child becoming distressed with drops and all the other children sitting there watching them having their drops and becoming really distressed, then when it's their turn, they're becoming distressed, and it's just building up on that anxiety around all the kids. So we're very lucky that we can use that space, and removing children from the play space, I guess, to take them into this room where they can have their drops. And we can also, keep them in that room, give them a chance to settle. We can set up activities and stuff in that room as well to help once they've completed their drops and redirect them. We've also tried to implement things, like I mentioned before, in promoting control. So like I said, in that room, we've got the option that they can lie on the bed to have their drops, or we've got chairs that they can sit on a parent lap. So giving the child a choice, we're not telling them that it's time to have the drops, not asking them if they want to have the drops, but saying, okay, it's time to have your drops. Do you want to lie on the bed or do you want to sit on a parent lap to have them? Also things around, you know, most parents are actually fantastic at giving the drops as well. The child might choose, we can say, do you want the nurse to give the drops or would you like mum or dad to give the drops? And any little things like that where the child feels as though they've got a bit of a choice and a little bit of control can make a huge difference as well. We also try to give the child a task. So the task might be, okay, it's your job to take a few nice big deep breaths. You might like to count before we do your drops. Can you hold your tissue so you can dab your eyes afterwards once we're finished? Giving the child that task can really involve them in the procedure as well and make them feel as though they're part of what's going on rather than having things done to them by everybody else. And again, like Sandra mentioned earlier, positive praise, validating feelings, telling them that they've done a good job. The kids really want to please. They don't come to the hospital, you know, thinking, oh, I'm going to play up today and not do a great job with my drops. They really do want to please adults and they want to please everyone at the hospital and they want to do a good job. Sometimes those reactions and things just take over from them and they need a little bit of support. But, you know, just finding even the smallest thing, being able to say, I could see you were trying really hard to do nice big deep breaths during your drops and things like that, providing them that praise and I guess reinforcing those strategies that we would really like for them to use to be able to cope more effectively with drops as well. And as Sandra said, validate that, you know, we understand that you don't like having the drops done. And if the child is old enough, giving them an explanation as to why we do need to do the drops as well. Unfortunately, by the time they are old enough to understand the explanation, they've normally had years of drops and very fond of them anyway.
So thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Belinda, and thank you, Sandra. As a retinoblastoma parent, it certainly took me back a little bit about the dreaded drops as well.
I guess I was just going to ask Olivia that, you know, when you talk about giving a choice, and I've certainly learned about giving choice to my kids when I'm down in the clinic, about how they want to sit with their parents or whether they want to sit by themselves. And that's really great. And I really love giving the choice. The problem is sometimes when we've got them in the chair, they're not in the right position and we can't stabilize them. And the whole process seems to take a longer time to actually do, and it just extends everything. Have you got any tips on how we can match or marry what I need as a clinician and what the child wants to do but is unable to do to effectively allow the drops to go in, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you mean like that they might be sitting up but then, you know, moving around and you can't get good access to their...
Yeah, they want to sit. If I say to them, would you like to sit in the chair or would you like to lie down with mum or dad or whoever's with them on the day? And they say, oh, I want to sit in the chair. But sitting in the chair is not working because they're sliding down or they're just moving their head too much. And we really do just need them in a position where they're not moving and we can actually get the drops in and get it over and done with.
Yeah. So I guess you can... like, it's great that you're giving them that choice and everything, but I guess it also probably needs some boundaries and not boundaries, that's probably not the right word, but be able to say, okay, well, if you choose to sit in the chair, this is what we are expecting from you. If you're unable to do this, we might have to look at something else. So they've got that option. Okay. Still, and you know, I guess we're never going to get them to that stage if we're not giving them the chance to try, but I guess there's always the thing that will give you a chance to try this, but if we're not able to manage it, we might still need a little bit of help to sit properly, and we might need to get you to sit on mum or dad's lap and do it so you can control that a little bit, or just even get mum or dad to, you know, stabilize the head or something like that, just to so we're giving them the chance to try, but I guess And just acknowledging for them too that, okay, we've tried this, but I can see you're still finding it really, really hard to keep your head still so as we can do the drops quickly and efficiently. So this is what we might have to try now.
Okay. You see, I'm always learning.
Good.
Thank you.